Hi everyone, my name's Caroline McKinnon and I work in the School of Biochemistry at the University of Bristol, and I'm going to give a quick presentation today about the types of careers that are available both in the NHS and potentially at the university for people who are interested in life sciences. So my journey so far, to tell you a bit about who I am, I grew up in the East Midlands in England in a town called Corby. And Corby's quite unique because although it is in the East Midlands of England, it's full of Scottish and Irish people. So people moved from Scotland and Ireland to Corby because of the steelworks to get work here. In the 1980s, the steelworks closed, which sent the town into an area of deprivation because the vast majority of people who lived in the town lost their job. And so that means that Corby was and still remains a place where many people don't engage with higher education. So when I was at school, I was actively discouraged from continuing in education, and this kind of spurred me on to want to go to university, and because I had a love of science. So I was very lucky to get a grant from the local council who helped me pay to go to university, and this is where I went in the middle picture. So I went to Aberdeen in the very, very north of Scotland. And this is my college, so this was Marshall College, and here I did an undergraduate degree in molecular biology, which was a mix of biochemistry and genetics, and then I also stayed in Aberdeen to do a PhD. When I left Aberdeen, I moved back down to England and decided to do a master's degree in forensic engineering on a military base, which was great fun for a year, and that's where I got my master's degree. And now I've ended up at the University of Bristol in the School of Biomedical Sciences, and this is in the Faculty of Life Sciences, so this mixes biochemistry, cellular molecular medicine, the School of Pharmacology, Physiology and Neuroscience, experimental psychology, and also biology as well. So this is where I am now, and my background was that I've spent many years doing science research, looking at diabetes, and then into different cancers, and then finally into kidney disease. And now I also do some teaching to undergraduates, and I go out to schools as well to talk about science. So this is our teaching lab, and I'm afraid at the minute we're not allowed into our teaching lab because of the COVID-19 situation, but hopefully you can see from this photograph that this is a very, very large lab, and we normally end up with around about 100 students in the lab at any time. So you can see here that we've got people wearing these green coats. These tend to be the academic who's in charge, and in this case this was Dr. Alice Robson. And also we have demonstrators who are people who go around helping our undergraduate students with their practical work. And really importantly as well, we have a team of technicians. So these are 3 of our technicians who basically keep the labs running. They do everything from setting up the equipment to getting different solutions and chemicals ready, making sure that everybody's happy, that everything's running smoothly, and they do a huge amount of work, and it's really very much appreciated by the people who are taking the labs and also by those who are teaching it, that our technicians keep everything running so smoothly. These technicians roles are entry-level roles, so you can train on the job, and also you tend to get quite a good experience of different teaching environments as well. So you can be teaching in biochemistry labs at some point, and then you also might go to help out in a different lab somewhere within the faculty as well. So many of our students, after they do their degree, go on to do the NHS Scientist Training programme. So this is something that you do need to have an undergraduate degree for, and this is a 3-year programme which essentially trains you in order to be something like a clinical biochemist, And you can also go on to do things like embryology, where you look at fertilizing eggs for in vitro fertilization for people who are struggling to have children. So it's very, very difficult, very competitive to get onto this program. But from the School of Biochemistry in Bristol, we've had a lot of success with our students being able to be accepted onto this course. So in our faculty, we also have research technicians. So these are different to our teaching lab technicians, who tend not to do any scientific research as such, but our research technicians do some of their own research. So they tend to be based in our research labs, and they have a particular research focus, a project that they're interested in, and they do their experiments and they get published in papers and they get put on grant applications for further studies, so they can end up doing PhDs from the research technician route. So again, these tend to be more entry-level experiences. You can come in potentially as an apprentice and be attached to a lab. Again, you learn on the job and you end up doing your own research project and also supporting the lab as well. So there can be some technical duties where you're looking after the upkeep of some of the equipment within the lab and also making up solutions and different chemicals in order to keep the stock levels within the lab running as well. So again, our research technicians are incredibly important people. You see here that this is Jorge, and he set up the Technical Talk Time seminar series. So research technicians come along once a month and they listen to talks from normally somebody who's an academic and then also somebody who's a member of the technical team. So this helps the technical team to really feel part of the valued environment that they are. So you might be interested in biochemistry and also thinking of working somewhere like the NHS, because biochemistry is incredibly important to the NHS. And you might know that the study of biochemistry is looking at the different chemical reactions that go on inside a body, whether that's human, whether that's different animals, plants, bacteria, yeast, and so on. And these tests can accurately predict what's wrong with somebody if they're not feeling so well, in order for them to be able to get the appropriate treatment. So I've put up some of the tests on this slide, and here on the top left, this is a cup of urine, and taking fluids from a body is a really important way of being able to do these diagnostic tests. Here you can see that there's a dipstick, a coloured dipstick that goes into the urine, and then you can match up the levels against the standards here on the pot. So urine has typically been used to diagnose things like diabetes. Many, many years ago, when people went to the doctor and gave a sample of urine, doctors would taste the urine to see if it tasted sweet, to see if there was sugar inside there. Thankfully, we've moved on from that many, many years ago. And so we have nice little diagnostic tests now. And urine can also be used to see how much protein is in the urine as well, to try and work out if kidneys are working properly or not, amongst other things as well. Again, when you look at blood, this tends to be automated now, but blood gives you a really good indication of the levels of protein within somebody's body, and also if there's something that's gone wrong, so if levels are too high or levels are too low. This can be really useful for things like checking levels of iron if somebody's anemic, and also even things like if people's thyroid's working properly or not. So blood gives a really, really good indication of what's happening inside somebody's body, and technicians tend to take the blood, put it into machines and measure whatever the GP has asked for. And it tends to be technicians that run this, and they do an incredibly important job giving the number of samples that the NHS has to process every single day. So you have to make sure that the samples are labelled correctly, that they have the correct patient details on them, that the samples are analysed within a certain time, and obviously the results are given back to the GP quickly. So incredibly useful roles within the NHS for anybody that's interested in doing biochemistry roles within the NHS. Here, this is a sample of cells which have been taken from a patient, and whereas these two here tend to be more classical biochemistry, where you are measuring levels of protein, you can also use things like cell biology to look to see if there's any differences in the cells within these samples. So you've probably looked at cells under a microscope before, and you probably know as well that different parts of the body have different types of cells. So they look differently and they form different structures within different organs depending on the type of job that they have to do. So this again is really useful when you're looking at biopsies to see if there's any differences in the structure within the sample from the patient. To bring it up to date, obviously at the minute we have the COVID-19 situation, and biochemical tests have been developed for detecting COVID-19. So the one here is the lateral flow test, which is the really quick test that you can do to detect if somebody has COVID-19, and also the RT-PCR test, which takes some samples from either up somebody's nose or from the back of the throat, and then they do RT-PCR, where they take the RNA from the virus and they do reverse transcriptase to turn it into double-stranded DNA. And then they put this into a PCR machine, which with a dye, a fluorescent dye, which means that the PCR will be amplified over and over and over. So the numbers of copies of the DNA get bigger exponentially. And this allows you to measure how much of the virus RNA was originally in somebody in real time. So you see this on a screen and you see if somebody has COVID-19 or not by doing this really simple test. And this test is really accurate as well. So it means that people can be diagnosed quite quickly. And there's a massive drive at the minute, obviously, as you can imagine, for people who are able to help with these testing centres as well. And also there's different types of jobs available at entry level. So if you want to work for somewhere like Great Ormond Street, they take on medical laboratory apprentices, and you don't need any prior knowledge of biochemistry for this, other than what you're doing at the level you are at the minute, at either A level or B Tech. So there are opportunities where you can go in and join things like the chemical pathology laboratory team, and also when you want to do a biomedical support worker as well. So the kind of things that are really important for these jobs is being able to be organised, work as part of a team, be able to do accurate data analysis, and also, as I've said before, make sure that samples are correctly labelled for the patients that they correspond to. And if you do want some further information about what we do in the Faculty of Life Sciences at the University of Bristol, please go to this page here, which will take you to our Outreach in Life Sciences page. And on this page, you'll find that there's further information and also experiences that you can sign up to. So we currently have some work experience for Year 10 and Year 12 students, but also we have taster days coming up, and also we have an interactive laboratory on there as well called eBiolabs, which people can sign up for free, and then you can log on and go through different modules depending on what you're interested in. So it could be biochemistry, it could be physiology, and on there they have different lessons where you're taken through step by step for different virtual experiments, which unfortunately we didn't have time to show any today. Best of luck with your career, and I hope you found this talk useful.